I, I think we want to. I think we want to get started. I know we have only a half an hour, and I think I could talk for several hours. So we want to get started. Um, I've just introduced myself. I'm Nancy Borstelmann, and I'm on faculty at the Yale Child Studies Center, and also co-director of our early onset cancer program. And what we're talking about this morning is something I think very critical and very that I feel very passionate about, is how we talk with our family members when there's cancer in the family, and also how we talk with children. Uh, so, and just to, by way of sharing some of my sort of goals for right now, and also philosophy. And what that really is how to share information, guidance, and research with you in a way that makes sense and is useful. And to know that what I'm sharing here today is probably many, many years of my own experience with working with families with cancer, but also that has been guided by best practice over what we have learned has been helpful for families. And I do have to credit the many, many families, cancer patients that I have worked with, and some of their children and teenagers and young adults who have helped me understand what's more helpful to them. So, and another point about this is the true value of open communication, and that while I'm sharing these, insights or guidance or suggestions, you all are really the experts on your own life, but on your own family and on your children. So dealing with how we talk with others is really critical, and sort of sets the stage for how you have to cope with many things that come up over the course of your cancer care. And it's necessary and challenging, and it's not just one conversation, it's many over the course of time, and it never follows a straight line. So how do we think about this? So a sort of established process that I think maybe you all know and probably have experienced this, is that it starts with where you are. So how do we check in with ourselves and really reflect on our own thoughts and feelings? Because talking with others is not just about where you are, it's also where they are, and about the relationship that you may have. And it's a very valuable step. So although we're all adults, and thinking about our own thoughts is something that you do without necessarily being aware of it. But in proceeding or going forward with a complicated conversation, or even just telling some news, is just knowing where am I today, and processing that can really help you feel more prepared. Because as you think through your own kind of where am I today, it allows you to be more in charge of your own emotions that can necessarily, and of course understandably, arise in any conversation. Some patients I know have spent time talking with either friends, family, therapists, counselors, spiritual leaders, others, in preparation for certain conversations, or sometimes sitting with your own thoughts in a journal, and just really taking some time to think about where am I, how am I feeling. So one very common referral that has come to me over the many years of my practice has been about, how do I talk with children? How do I tell my kids? When do I tell my kids? How much do I tell my kids? Kids of different ages. And I think many, many parents, and I understand, I have 3 kids myself, when tough things come up in your life, it's natural to want to protect. Because that's what parents do. That is a big job for us. And yet when you have children and you have cancer in the family, one of the sort of key principles, I think, to guide how you proceed and how you think about things is how to be open, and that children and families do best. And we know this from our own practice, but also from a lot of research that's been done in this area, that it's kind of an error of kindness. In other words, it comes from the best place possible. But yet, the way to really help your kids is to share with them. And kids really want to know. And if they don't hear directly from you, they may hear it from someone else. They may overhear it. And that is a really tough way to get information. Another important point is that when you have open communication, is you open up space to ask for kids, others to ask questions or to share their worries or their concerns. And that it's a really important thing around feeling alone and isolated. Cancer can be a very isolating experience, and not only for the person with cancer, and I maybe in this audience today we have some of you who are being treated for cancer and others who are family members, but just no matter who you are, cancer has affected your family and it's rippling through, and everyone can feel it in different ways. Silence is also something that can lead to misunderstanding and mistrust or distress. So really valuable to be open and honest. So just a few points on navigating. So honesty is one of the principles that we're talking about. And also not necessarily every detail about everything, but what do we need to know now? What's going to be noticed, or what's going to really be a concrete change in someone's day or routine? Trying to keep things normal, which I know could be a tall order when there's so much going on, but routine, predictability, as much as you can do, knowing that cancer care is a very dynamic thing and can be very disruptive. So just planning and thinking about, okay, where can I keep things like they usually are? Acknowledging uncertainty. There's not everything is known or clear. And sometimes it's helpful to just say that, you know, I don't know the answer to that. I'm not sure exactly what that's going to be like, but I'll let you know. Expressing feelings is healthy and helpful. It really helps in the space of sharing information. And it's interesting how children, when they're asked about this, they say, well, I told my mom about my after school sports. I told her about this. She hadn't thought about that. So then we figured out, how am I going to get picked up on those days that she has to go into the clinic? So sometimes kids really feel a part of something in a very helpful way. And they can help you because they tell you things. Okay. So just, I'm going to go through some slides around different age groups of children, and we'll have to go through rather quickly, but I'm happy to answer any questions after, during the lunch and whenever. So just what is developmental understanding? It's really what's appropriate for kids of different ages. It's the way that children understand the world around them, the lens through which they see the world. And thinking about conversations in general is not just a conversation writ large, but it's really a lot of small conversations along the way. So, and when you are in cancer care and you know you're going to be in cancer care for a long time, it's really helpful to set this foundation, particularly when there are times when you need to have a pivot conversation. What I mean by that is something's changed. There's a shift in treatment. I have to go in more often. There may be a surgery or a hospitalization or a change in caregiver or some routine. So when you've been already discussing this and talking about this, it's helpful because it doesn't come up as a surprise. So again, creating this space so that children have permission, quote unquote, permission, meaning it's okay to ask questions. Sometimes kids hold back because they aren't sure if it's okay to have that thought or have that question or feel that way. So the more you have an open space, the better it is for them. They may or may not tell you, but at least they know. They know. Even kids who are quiet and don't ask questions, they're thinking, but then they know if they did, they could come and talk about it. News bulletins. So what I mean by that, I'll go to the next slide, is just updates. Sometimes it's just a way of thinking about, oh, we're going to have a news bulletin tonight, or we're going to have and kids will smile about that. And it can be 2 minutes. It can turn into a long conversation. But it's really just, I have some news to tell you. I have something I want to share with you all. And then you can just say it, whatever it is. And then this is the time to pause and let them take it in. Sometimes less is more. When we get anxious as humans, we can sometimes talk a lot, and a lot keeps coming out. And so in that case, just try to take a deep breath and give yourself a moment. And there may be questions, there may not be any questions, but it's a space to just share about what's going on. So across all ages of children, I wanted to just say these 3 things, that even older children, surprisingly, can think that they may have done something to cause cancer or to make your illness worse in some way. And it's not logical, but it can be something that they're struggling with. And so just literally saying, I want you to know that nothing you said or did caused my cancer. Cancer is not an illness you can catch. Again, even older children can sometimes get confused by this. And again, it's more like a broken leg. I found that to be a helpful way of thinking about it, and not like a cold. All kids need a sense of comfort, of security, and about what's going on and who's going to take care of me, no matter how old they are. They may need it in different ways, but they may not show it, but they still need it. So I'm going to go through these slides on some of the different developmental stages. So infants and toddlers. So a baby or a little one and 2 and under, they're not going to understand. However, what they do notice is the change in their routines and the feelings around them, because babies and little ones, they are wired to be very sensitive, and so they feel it. So they can get a little upset or not sleep as well, or it might disrupt their eating. But essentially, the more consistent that you can be and with caregivers or routines, the better. And just a lot of contact, hugging, holding, soothing. Younger age kids, 3 to 5, again, very basic, and a reminder that you can't catch cancer, but they also have something called magical thinking. So it might be, I did something like, I couldn't sleep and I was crying and fussing and I kept mommy awake, and then mommy was so tired and I think I made her sick. And so again, being able to talk with kids and reassure them that nothing they did. And then they usually go on about their play. Kids of this age are very self-centered. That's how they just are put together. That's how they think about things. So they can often come back with the same question over and over again that you just answered 2 minutes ago. And you said, I'm really tired. I need to rest right now. Can you play with me? And so sometimes just a distraction of, I wish I could play. Sometimes a wish statement is helpful for kids. I wish I could play, but I really need to rest. Could we sit together on the couch and draw some pictures? Sometimes kids this age also do a lot of play through about how they're dealing and feeling about things. So it might be with their dolls or with their stuffed bear, and you see them taking care of the bear or putting the doll in a car and zooming around on their way to the hospital. And it's a time when you can just say, you know, tell me what's happening to your bear. And then honestly, most kids just go on about their play, but it's just recognizing that this is just how they do, and not to be alarmed about it. It's their way of making sense of their world. For kids in the 6 to 12, sort of this, and these are very broad because there can be a lot of difference between a 6-year-old and a 12-year-old, but in general, they sometimes when stressed will act younger than they typically would, sometimes even surprisingly baby talk. But it's a way in which they're expressing their feelings, but also a way of getting attention in some ways, like I might need something from you. They can ask a lot of questions. Kids at this age are just sponges for information. So they may ask about everything, about hair loss. Why do you have those bandages? What's that thing over there? And simple explanations. And sometimes a sentence or two is plenty. You don't need a lot of detail. They can sometimes get angry because I can't do what I want to do. And that is also sometimes a response to being sad about it or not understanding. So it just gets expressed as being angry. So simple, brief explanations, reassuring them that quote unquote stressing you out with their less than perfect behavior, as many kids have, or things going on at school didn't cause or make you sick or make your cancer worse. Thinking about school, this could be we could talk a lot about school, but because kids spend so much of their time at school, and it can be an island of normality is the way I think about it. And one aspect about school is to encourage kids to bring their questions or concerns that might come up at school to you, because sometimes other kids say things that are confusing or upsetting. Sometimes teachers ask questions, so it gives you a little bit of a heads up. Sometimes complaining about stomach aches, headaches. And usually when that happens, you might get a call from the school nurse, but you can always check in with the school. It's hard to protect especially teens and young adults from the internet and social media. I mean, it's everywhere, and that's probably where they live more and more all the time. And I think what you can say is there is a lot out there that is not accurate, that can be scary, confusing. Is there anything worrying you? Is there anything that you heard that would be good for me to know about and we could talk about? And you can answer the question the best you can, or bring it to your team and get answers, or try to redirect them to reliable resources that are where you know the information is helpful, as opposed to frightening, scaring, or just strange. Teenagers and young adults, and sometimes younger kids too, can be sensitive to how they feel different. So that's a place, again, for talking with them. And again, sometimes there's not much you can do about that because this is the situation, but I think just the fact that they could share it with you, or that they're talking with friends or others. Sometimes strong feelings, teenagers. And if you think about this fight, flight, freeze, you may have heard about this in other contexts, but what that can mean is acting, and this could be family members too, acting out with frustration or anger, just withdrawing and not being available, or just not saying much. And that's sometimes because they are trying to figure out how they feel about something, what they're thinking. Teenagers can also be, because they are developing their own identity, very self-focused. And I think a lot of parents can get frustrated about this. They just don't think about how to be helpful. So a response to that is to be as clear as you can be. And it may be reminders or things posted, but about expectations, responsibilities, and limits. It can be hard sometimes to stick with the expectations and the limits when you've got a lot going on, but a few reminders, please make sure you're home by 6 p.m. I need help with dinner and your siblings, or I need a check-in call or a text when you leave school. So just clear, simple, and just repeating it. Teenagers are also trying to figure out how to do their own thing. Independence is primary, and privacy. So it's important to respect it, but to also know sometimes they still need and want closeness and comfort. They may not want to say it, but they want to know you're there for them. So, and it can come up in the talking side by side in the car, so I don't have to look at you directly. That can be a place to just do a check-in, or finding a way to share something fun together. So living with cancer as a family, so just a few sort of wrap up points. Support over solutions. So it can be really hard not to be able to control what is happening or not to be able to make it better. What's been on your mind? Can we talk about that? So there's not always an answer for everything or a way to just fix it and take it away. Listen. Worry to the worries, to the needs, the feelings, validate. So that means just helping the child, your young adult, the family member feel seen and heard. And the validation is something like, it's natural to be upset. I'm sometimes sad and frustrated too. And it can be hard to talk about this. And I'm here when you want to, because sometimes not everybody wants to talk at the moment that maybe you would like to, but just to know I'm here if you want to. Can we make a plan to talk another time tomorrow, later when we are sitting down before dinner? Reassure. I wish it were different, and what can we do to make things better? So this is a strategy called both and. So you say, I wish it could be different, and not but, and here's some ideas I have about what we could do to make this better, or this is a lot to take in, and here's some ideas I have. What ideas do you have? So there's something about hearing that in that way that helps open up the space for conversation. I'm going to go over a few points that relate to general communication. When you're talking with caregivers or others in your family, I did a lot of research work on cancer caregivers, meaning family members or others who are supporting cancer patients. And I think one of the key things that I have taken away is really helping to figure out what are the ways to support each other. In other words, emotional support, is it more practical support, logistical things that need to be taken care of? Is it information? It's just too much for me to take in. Can you help find out more about what your child needs for school, or how to figure out another childcare or situation? So it's those three categories: information, the emotional feeling support, or logistical practical support, and sort of helping to figure out who's going to do what, and are we on the same page? So what about talking with children, or sharing information with friends, asking and receiving help? These are, I think, really critical topics that sometimes it's good to just put out there. Are we really on the same page? And how are we going to figure out what to do about our different ideas? What about talking with work or school? A few points about honesty. It can be very challenging to say what you want to say, whether it's about the current situation that you're in right now, a change in your treatment, about how you're feeling, about your frustrations, about the future. And sometimes there are questions that come up. And is it something that you can do together with your family member, or with your spouse or partner? Do we need to put a list together to ask the team? And again, it's just a way of sharing this, because there's often a lot of questions, and caregivers, family members can feel isolated and kind of sitting with their own thoughts and worries and not really sure, is it okay to ask that question? Being patient and listening and asking questions. Somehow we are, I think, again, as humans, often want to take care of things and fix them in the moment, but we can't always fix things. So it's more about, are we in it together and can we figure this out together? Empathy. So empathy is, I can try to put myself in your place, not what I think of it, but how I think you may be thinking about it. So that is really a key element of mutual support and opening up conversations. What's happening right now in the current situation, and what are things that we might have to plan for? Changing roles and responsibilities. Just really naming that, like, I used to always do this particular thing. I used to always take the kids to school. I used to always cook dinner. Now my spouse has to do more of that, or my 18-year-old is going to help with pickup. And it's all good that everybody's working together, but it's acknowledging that that is different. That is different. And as humans, we're also quite adaptable, but it doesn't happen as easily if we're not talking about it. Focusing on what's important. It's really, it's hard to change what you do sometimes, because that feels like being normal. But sometimes you have to step back and say, can we just settle for good enough? I'd like to make the perfect something, or have this family member over and do dinner, but I have to cut back. I'm just going to have to settle for good enough when it comes to certain things. And lastly, just getting organized. Something that is important to do together with family, or to get the kids involved where they can be involved. Talking through appointments, planning, figuring out calendars, making sure you've got important documents and information where you can find it. Sometimes the scramble is hard. Everybody finds a different method, whether it's calendars or color coding or things on the fridge, but finding a way that works for you. Discussing legal and financial issues early on. Most people, regardless of having cancer or not, do not ever want to talk about these things, because that's human nature. Talking about legal issues, money issues, sensitive issues are often avoided. That's just how we are as people. But really taking time to sit down and think, are there areas like my healthcare proxy or my will or advanced directives? Have we talked about any of this? Have I thought about any of this? And it doesn't mean you have to dive in, but it's a start. And you want to do those things when they're not urgent and in a crisis. And for family members, caregivers, and others, helping to encourage them to educate themselves, inform themselves, and find support, because everybody needs support. I just wanted to mention that at Yale, I'm co-directing the development of this early onset cancer program. And this is for patients, all cancers, diagnosed between the ages of 18 and 50. And our goal is to really put together research, psychosocial care, look at our clinical care for individuals of these ages, and also to focus on the community and outreach, and how we can better help our community understand what we have to offer and how they can also help themselves in early detection, but also screening. And I think I'm at time. So, but I don't think we'll have time to do this breathing exercise, but I did want to mention that one thing we have with us, no matter where we go, no matter whatever we're facing, is our breath. And that doing some very simple, gentle breathing exercises, and I'm happy to send those out, with some other resources, can really help just ground you and make even the next tough thing just a little bit easier. And just really appreciate the challenges that all of you are facing. Cancer really is serious business, but it's a lot. There's a lot of ways to do it, and I hope I have offered a few ideas or suggestions in this regard. And I just want to end with that life is not only cancer, even though it feels like it's overwhelming and taking up 99% of your time. But think about what relaxes you, what makes you laugh, and what brings you peace. So thank you all so much.